we describe certain behavior on the part of people as superhuman. And it's precisely correct. There is the potential, there is the ability for a human being to be superhuman. Superhuman means not the greatest human, but something other than, more than human. How is that possible? First of all, we were created in God's image. So we're not artificially trying to convince ourselves that there is something godly about us. We're told right from the beginning of creation, yes, there is a godly potential in you. In other words, you can be human or you have the potential to be something godly. You're created in God's image. In addition to this, we are told that we have a godly soul. That is not just in the image of God, it is literally a piece of God. Which is like saying, whatever God wants, whatever God needs, we want it and we need it because we are a piece of Him. Whatever pleases Him also pleases us, and whatever He despises, we despise as well. Not mimicking Him, but because we are a piece of Him. So to say that our soul is a piece of God means it has the same behaviors, the same, I can't call it nature, but the same properties. God wants a dwelling place in the lowest world. Our soul wants it too. God wants the world perfected, and for Mashiach to come, we want it too. For the same reason. Because we have the same godly properties or qualities, because we are, in our soul, a piece of God. So why do we keep celebrating the liberation, the exodus from Egypt, from slavery? No, it's not. We're not celebrating freedom. We are celebrating God giving us an option, something more than human. And that's why directly from Egypt, we went to Mount Sinai. And at Mount Sinai, we got to know God, and at the same time, got to know ourselves. So God introduced us to ourselves, and we discovered that our truest self does not want the habits of humanity. We want to be something more than human. So that's where we're breaking out of all of these habits because of the virus, but we need to keep an eye on the goal. We don't want to just break out of the habit of going to restaurants or theaters or amusement parks or even school or work. We want to break out of all of that. We want to break out of our human condition. So the first thing we need is to find out what is the human condition and what's the alternative, what's the godly condition that we're going to switch to. It's going to be a whole new world. Everything we ever thought we knew about ourselves is going to be challenged. And we're going to discover the godly side of us. This leads us to another interesting thing, and we've talked about this, but we talk about Pesach every year, so it's the same subject every year. What did Pharaoh want? He put the Jews to work making mud bricks to build houses. These bricks are made out of mud and straw and then baked in the sun. You can't really get lower than mud and straw. Of all the materials that a country has, that's down there at the bottom, mud and straw. Pharaoh was not your ordinary dictator. He wasn't a Stalin. He understood, maybe not consciously, but he understood God, the creator of the world, took the Jewish people and said, I'm hiring you, I'm choosing you to take the lowest elements of creation and turn them into a home for me. God wants a dwelling place in the lowest world. Pharaoh considered himself a god. Well, how did he know how to be a god? So he tried to mimic God. He took the same people God chose, and he said, build me houses for me out of the lowest elements in the country. Take mud and straw and build me homes. He could have said, take rocks and build me homes. Build me a stone house. Would have lasted longer. But that was not the lowest. That was not the lowest element, because rocks are a natural, created condition. Making mud bricks is starting from scratch. So this is what Pharaoh wanted. Treat me like God. When God took us out of Egypt, what was the meaning there? No, you're not making a dwelling or houses for Pharaoh. You can't be working for the slave. You should be working for me, the Creator. So God said, come meet me at Mount Sinai, and I'll tell you what you were really created for. And that hasn't changed. That has not lost its power. It has not lost its importance. It has not lost its significance. And so we thank God, not only on Pesach, but every day of the year, to remember the coming out of Egypt. And again, what are we remembering? That we didn't just come out of slavery. God gave us an alternative to slavery that includes enslavement to the human condition, to human limitations. So back in the 50s, when the Rebbe said, let's change the world with Torah, let's change the world with godliness. It was not just an ambition, and it was not only a mission placed on us. It's a description of reality. The world was created to be elevated. We were created to do the elevating. Elevating means transcend the human condition and introduce godly reality to the lowest of all creations. So, literally speaking, when you give $1 to charity, you are taking something low and you are exposing or activating or liberating the divine potential for which that dollar exists. Only the dollar can't do it by itself. So there's a divine potential in the dollar. There's a divine potential in the wheat that makes the flour that makes the matzah. You eat the matzah, now you can function. So everything a human being does has now become sanctified because it's all coming from the energy you got from the matzah. Nothing is left out. Nothing is left out. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, what is the greatness of tzedakah? You're only giving 10% of your income, or 20% if you're really generous, or more if you're beyond generous, and most Jews are. So what is the significance of giving a part of your income? What about the rest? Oh, the rest is for me. I can't be completely selfless. That's not the right answer. The right answer is when you give 20% or even 10%, it's 10% of all that you earned through all of your efforts, which means you spent days and sometimes nights to produce this money. When you give $1 of that money, what you are now doing is affecting all the effort, all the work, all the materials that you used at work, all the parts of the body that were engaged in the work, everything you ate during those years of making money in order to make the money, all of that has now reached a moment of truth. You give it to charity. So it's not just the dollar bill that you gave. It's the hand that gives it. It's also the hand that worked at the job that produced the dollar. So now all the hours you spent working have now become sanctified because they all culminated in a mitzvah, in the tzedakah. So all the money is elevated when a part of it goes to the mitzvah. So it's not you get to keep some and some of it becomes holy. It all becomes holy. Like in the days of the temple, when a person brought a goat as a sacrifice to the temple, all his flocks, all his sheep were now elevated because that's where the goat comes from. We also assume that with time, more of the money will be going to tzedakah. Because once you start that habit or that trend, it continues, it grows like everything else. So here's what we're saying. Being godly is not unnatural. It is more than the nature of the human being, but we are more than human beings. That's the point. And when did we discover this, and how were we shown that this is who we are? When we were taken out of Egypt. And that's forever.